Welcome to Research Matters with Unda and Kuda, an online show that is all about communicating the research taking place at NUST in efforts to promote the university's research agenda and the impact thereof.
We are so back at it, another week of Research Matters right here on NUST FM. I was about to say with Unda and Kuda, but today we've got somebody else in the house, a face that's starting to become very familiar.
I'm happy to be here, always. I'm definitely happy to stand in for Unda. Good morning.
Awesome. Thank you for doing this as always, Ms. V. Now in studio today we've got Dr. Marius Mutorwa. He's a senior lecturer for biology and chemistry. Why am I saying biology? Biology and chemistry. And he's going to tell us his life story. So the very first, right from the top, in a few minutes, Doctor, can you walk us through your journey, your life journey? Sum it up for us. Tell us a little bit about your career.
Good morning, ladies. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come chat to you in this beautiful studio. Well, my life journey, start off, I was born in Rundu. We moved to Windhoek when I was about 6 and trying to let's say, come to the big city life and experience that. So I would say from a career perspective, I've always had, as a youngster, I was always, inspired by parents and my uncles and aunties who were actually all, most of them anyway, were in the space of teaching. So that drove about a curiosity within me to the extent that I would say primary school, high school, I loved all the subjects. I was quite curious about that. And in
all the subjects, no ways.
Yeah.
There has to be just that one. There was a pain point.
I can't think of a subject that I didn't enjoy. I just like, learning. Like I said, through that process of seeing my dad as a teacher, seeing my uncles and aunties as teachers, being around that environment. So I was always curious. But I think the sciences started, the love for science really started in high school. I had a very good, very energetic chemistry and biology and physics teacher. She inspired me really to go into that field, and computer science, by the way. So when I got to university, the idea was to major in computer science. So I had my focus in terms of computer science is going to be the subject that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. But somehow I digressed to chemistry. Interesting story. I don't know if we have time for that, but yeah.
Was this? So did you just to get it right? Did you register for computer science? Then changed? How did that work out?
First year you take combination of subjects, and so I chose chemistry, physics, computer science, biology, and then the first part of the first semester of first year, I was really into the computer science, and I think the point where it changed was after the mid-semester break. In the first semester, we had a big chemistry test.
Then you found yourself.
Well, I failed.
Okay.
I think I got like 31% or 33% for that test.
Sure.
And I think I still have that copy of that test in my...
Why did you keep it?
I still have my notes from varsity, from university. I still have some of my notes from high school. And I think it's just something that I picked up from my dad, because he has, everywhere you go, he has just papers and he has some library. So I just picked that up. So, but it was a transformational point, because throughout high school, primary school, I was always getting good grades. And when I failed that test, I took it as an opportunity, because that's really, like I mentioned earlier, I'm quite curious. So I began to ask questions into why that happened, and taking myself out of my comfort zone and beginning to engage with my lecturers and try to understand why that happened and where I could have, improve, how I could improve. So that was the transformational aspect, to the extent where I started spending more time in the chemistry department, just engaging with my professors. And I suppose this is probably also a learning note for the students that are listening, to say, do not always have that courage to approach your lecturers and your professors.
It gets intimidating, actually.
It could get intimidating. And so, but that was the transformational point where I started spending more time in the chemistry department, and interacting with my professors at a very sort of informal level, and I got through semester 1, and then semester 2 was, well, all the other subjects sort of took a back seat, from an interest perspective.
Ms. K, isn't that very interesting? So, whereas somebody else would think, okay, 31%, I'm not going to do this again. It's not my thing. I'm not going to work on this anymore. But you took it as a challenge. You were like, let me get to the core. Why did this happen?
What happened?
Right? And you turned that into a success. Now, if I may, just fast forward real quick to the past, let's say, from your PhD, when you did your PhD to now. How has that part of the journey unfolded, real quick?
Well, in a way, very, very interesting, because when you start studying PhD, you get into an area of specialization. My focus was on the development of pharmaceutical agents and drugs. Let's call them not medicines, but those active ingredients that end up being medicines. So that was the PhD, and the focus was on antimalarials. Fascinating, because the reason why I chose that topic was I had an auntie who passed on from malaria, and I thought, okay, maybe if there's a skill that I can learn and see how I can affect change in society, let me focus my PhD studies on antimalarial drug designs. But to cut the story short, I mean, the last few years, so the focus has always been on medicinal chemistry and pharmaceutical chemistry, but like I mentioned to you, you start having conversations with various other colleagues and experts, and I've always been curious. So that has led me into what we refer to now as nature-based solutions, to see how we can use the principles of chemistry and what nature has to offer, bring them together so that we can let's say affect the socio-economic socio-economic conditions of people and the environment. So it's very interesting, because it's taken me now into fields that I did not think I would look into. We're talking about energies, the production of biofuels, production of biofertilizers, biomaterials, and so forth. So it's been very
wide now.
And also it's taken me into the field of a little bit of law, intellectual property. So,
no, Doc, before we get into the thick of chemistry and biology, you used to engage your lecturers and your profs a lot. Are you the type of lecturer now that students can engage as much as you did?
Are you approachable?
Are you approachable?
Are you available?
I am approachable and I am available. I don't think, I mean, that's once I'm on campus, I think everything else takes a back seat.
Yeah.
You can always find time time to do, say, let's say, the administrative aspects of things, say, or you can always find time for that. But the number one when I'm physically on campus, or even through now WhatsApp connections, I mean, my students know that I'm always available for them. So yeah, I think it's meaningful.
That's good. That's good. Let's now get into the thick of things. Tell us what research projects are you currently working on?
Okay, like I mentioned, it's nature-based solutions, which is really how sustainable management and using natural features of what the environment provides to come up with products or services which can make a socioeconomic difference. And the focus now is how do we use what nature offers us, so natural products, to be able to affect the food energy nexus. So we look at research that deals with water security, for instance, purification of water, and making developing products which allows us to purify water, making it potable and drinkable. We're working on projects with industry partners to see how we can develop biofuels or biodiesel, so that you're able to at least mitigate some of the negative effects of climate change, as well as reduce the carbon emissions. So, and we're working on improvement of human health. So this comes into the regional aspect that I talked about in terms of, can we potentially work on or produce products which are able to help the human health from a medicine perspective, but also from a nutrition perspective.
I really like that holistic approach, because it's not only one-track mind, if I can call it that. It's also really looking at the different aspects. How does it affect this field? So not only the chemistry of things, so to put it, it spills over into nutrition, spills over into the water as well that you spoke about. So I think that's very exciting. Before I get to my next question, just a real fun fact, hey, when he says his dad, he's talking about the Deputy Prime Minister. Moving on.
I was going to ask, but I don't want to be that person.
Moving on. Now, you spoke extensively about the work that you're involved in, and you said we this and we that, right? When you talk about we, can you just maybe highlight the work that you're doing with students or community engagement? Can we just get a bit deeper into that one?
Yeah, I mean, when I say we, most of the research is really being conducted by the students, whether it's in the lab or in the field. So every project that we have, we always have a student or two attached to them. So when I talk about the production of biodiesel, for instance, it is a student who is looking into that. We might just, with us as faculty, we might just conceptualize the idea. Sometimes even the idea comes from the students. We encourage that a lot. So when we talk about the development of, say, a water purification system, we're engaging students from the engineering department and also our department, and we're bringing them together to say, can you develop this system? So when I talk about we, it's actually the students which are running with the research, and we're just there to help and guide. Sometimes take a step back, really, because you learn more by doing than. Yeah.
All right, just like that, we've come to the end of today's first half, and we'll come back on the flip side of a short musical break. We're still joined in studio by Dr. Marius Mutorwa. It's, of course, Research Matters with Unda and Kuda.
If you've just joined us, you are listening to Unda and Kuda right here on NUST FM. And in the house today, sitting in for Unda, we have Miss K, who's, as always, doing a fabulous job. I'm not just sucking up, I mean that.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. And we've got Dr. Marius Mutorwa, who is still with us. Now, Doctor, we earlier on off air, we spoke about just having multidisciplinary approaches to things. We spoke about your experience in health, but you also spoke about how you've somewhat ventured into the intellectual property space. Firstly, right to the basics, say for a first year that's out there that needs to know, what is intellectual property anyway?
Well, intellectual property, simply and fundamentally defined, is really any creations of the human mind or intellect. It could be in the form of, say, an invention, or literary works, or music, a short story. It could be a drawing, or an image, or a symbol. So anything that is created by an act of human intellect or creativity, that you can define as intellectual property. Now, it can have value. Most of the time when we look at intellectual property, we sort of connect it to commercial value.
Yes.
But it can also have moral. There's also that moral value, especially when we start to deal with aspects of copyrights. So there's a commercial, could be a commercial value attached to it, but it could also have a moral value. You simply write a story, Kuda, about, I don't know, your childhood. That is a creation of your mind, and it couldn't have some significant meaning or value attached to you. It might not have such a meaning to someone else, but the fact that you've created it through a process of creativity or invention, whatever, we can classify that as intellectual property. Now there's the aspect of intellectual property rights, which is now those legal rights, or rights which are enforceable through the legal system, which allows you as the creator now to either exploit or utilize that intellectual property or IP that you've created, and secondly, prevent others from using or exploiting that intellectual property without, for a limited period of time, without your consent. So you need to give consent if you want someone to utilize that IP that you might own. Now that could be in the form of, let's say, an assignment, so selling your rights, your let's call it, the rights can be in the form of a patent or a trademark, or copyright or industrial design.
Now, how does IP, intellectual property, how does it link to research?
Well, there's a very big research is creation, generation of knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge. And if you look into the definition of what IP is, the creation of the mind, the process of research, you are creating, you are generating knowledge. It could be knowledge which is based on previous existing knowledge, derivative knowledge, or it could be new knowledge. It could be basic knowledge or applied knowledge. So it ties in, it's very, very strong. And we say research activities and universities are the factories of knowledge, and knowledge creation. So what you're doing effectively is that you are creating, a university should be a space where, or even a research institute, whether public or private, it's a place where you generate knowledge or IP.
Yeah.
So that's the link. And of course, the importance is to recognize that you've generated that IP. And then secondly, once you've generated, how can you extract value from that? It could be commercial value. It could be, value from a moral perspective. And importantly, the way I see it, for the benefit of socioeconomic benefit of others. So that's the link really between IP and research.
All right, now that we've gotten here in terms of rights and protection, where do you think as a country we can truly upscale or simply said improve in terms of IP protection?
That's a very good question. Namibia has a national IP policy, intellectual property policy and strategy, which is a very good, very good document. In fact, it's currently starting a process of reviewing that. It came out in 2019, published in 2019. And that document spells out the country's sort of strategy towards effectively using intellectual property in line with the national development goals. Where, to go back to your question, where we can improve, you mentioned IP protection. I think the most IP protection is just a subset of the
bigger picture
of the system.
Yeah.
And it starts with IP education and awareness. In my the system really, IP education and awareness, because you need to understand the value that IP brings to the table. If I just speak from a corporate perspective, there's a recent article that just came out, and they value the value of IP to the corporate, of intangible assets or IP to the corporate, stood at 62 trillion US dollars last year. So you begin to see how that's only from a commercial perspective. We're not even talking about the value of knowledge just from a non-commercial perspective. So it starts with IP education and awareness to be able to understand what is the value of what this human creativity and invention. That's the first step. So we can actually, I believe, we need to strive to enhance or promote and create awareness of the value of IP. Then you go into IP generation. Once you understand that what I've generated has this potential value, then it makes it. Then you go into what you were talking about in terms of protection.
Are there any penalties for people who breach these type of situations where they copy or they steal or
so forth?
You know?
That's where now.
And are they harsh enough?
Well, this is when it goes back to the original question and the answer that I was providing, to say you have to look at the system itself. Education and awareness to be able to understand that you're able to use this system, the IP. Generation, and to generate the IP. And then, of course, protection. Protection, what rights do I protect my IP as a patent, as a copyright works, as a trademark, as an industrial design, or do I actually protect it using the complementary rights? Then, of course, now it goes into the question that you were just asking in terms of IP risk and management. And that's where now you have to understand that, how do you manage what you have, Ms. V? How do you manage the IP that you own?
Yeah.
But at the same time, how do you use your IP right, your trademark or your patent in such a way that it does not infringe on others?
Yes.
So you also need to understand that. And then the last bit is IP enforcement. Do you have the institutional frameworks and capacities and the necessary human capital to be able to enforce
protection of these?
The rights that you might own and so forth. So now you're looking at law enforcement agencies, the judicial system, to be able to provide these remedies. And it's not only customs. You talk about, you might create a product tomorrow that you want to export or export to other markets. Do our custom officials, are they in a position to be able to give you remedy if there's counterfeiting of those goods that occur? So it's the whole system, and I think we need to look at it from that perspective as a country. It's good to talk about protection, but if you don't have any IP to protect, there's
nothing.
So I think holistically that's where we need, and human capital development I think it's important in all those.
I literally feel like we need another session for just to really dig deeper into IP. And I like the whole bit that you mentioned of really raising awareness, just really down to the basics. What are we even talking about? Because I think a lot of people might be having their IT not protected, so to put it, or even just be, I can't find quite the word to use, but they don't even know what they have.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So you don't even know, you're aware, you don't know what the value of what you're sitting on is. Somebody else comes in, they get all the rights, steal rights from you, and because you just didn't know.
Exactly. And that's why I said it starts there with awareness. And if I may just add in terms of what NUST is doing, because just recently NUST established the TISC Technology Innovation Support Center at the HTTPS, and this is the whole idea around this, with support from BIPA, our authority, as well as WIPO. So there is this opportunity to be able to, not only for the researchers and the students and us, but just the general public, to be able to visit this center and to see how the center can support them in terms of anything related to intellectual property. So this is the idea, and this is where I say BIPA has done a good job in collaboration with NUST and WIPO to be able to begin to establish these kind of centers, so that people become aware and they know what value they have, what's the right way of protecting it. If they're unsure whether they're infringing the rights of others, again, you can have that conversation with the experts to be able to at least guide you. And I know at this stage it's free. I stand corrected, but I think it's a free service. So and I think that's a beautiful story, looking at what the university is doing to be able to affect change within our society. And
I think it's always exciting, especially when you're championing something, for really leading the conversations. Really, look, obviously it's not a one-man band, we must have partners on board, but just knowing that we're at the forefront of such interesting conversations, and a lot of work as well. I know groundwork has been done elsewhere, but just really harmonizing it and bringing it under one umbrella, that is the HTTPS.
All right, and just like that, we've come to the end of today's edition of Research Matters with Unda and Kuda. Indeed, it's been great, right? Stepping in, of course. It's been great. You can catch the next episode, or you can catch this episode with Unda and Kuda. Follow research, innovation, and partnerships at NUST pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as NUST FM on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, our podcasts are available on NUST YouTube's page. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us, and I hope you will come back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back and have conversations. Thank you very much.
All right.